Hello everyone, hope you're doing well and welcome to my driver ratings for the 7th meeting of the year at Croft. The Croft circuit has previously been one that's produced racing that I've not really been a fan of in the past, but I guess the resurfacing they did a few years ago has made this circuit more of a driver's circuit and less of a rear-wheel drive or more front-wheel drive circuit. I think that's done a world of favours because the racing this weekend was absolutely excellent, and I think the second and third race in particular were two of the best I've seen in quite some time. So obviously riding high from that weekend. Anyway, here are my races for all the drivers once again, and let's get into it. We'll start off with the one-off replacement for Rick Parfitt due to Rick having a small back surgery, but he'll be back for next week at Silverstone, which is good to hear. But Nick Halstead took taking place for this one weekend. Expectations probably weren't too high for him, being a TCR driver and also a GT4 Super Cup driver in the AM class. So yeah, expectations wouldn't be too high for him, and I think all things considered, having kept it clean and mostly clean, one small mistake when he had a spin in race 3. I think other than that, pretty clean. All things considered, I don't think he seemed out of place in the championship at all. If we see him again, I wouldn't be too bothered. He did a fine job for a one-off replacement. So I'll give Halstead a C this weekend. Next up, Paddy Neat, who's made a return from his illness. Good to see. Hope he's fully recovered from that now. And I think I have to say, a nice, necessary, clean weekend for Neat. Also, stayed out of trouble. And when there were a load of DNFers towards the end of races 2 and 3, for example, Neat was up there in the top 20 where you'd expect him to be, having kept it clean and got the rewards for finishing and keeping his nose clean, which is very good to see from Neat, and good to have him back, fully recovered hopefully, and now he's stayed out of trouble this one, so I'll give him a C. A bit of a similar story for Jack Mitchell. Again, no real issues apart from race 3 where he was out on the first lap. Apart from that, mostly normal business, staying in and around the top 20 or out of it, just staying clean most of the time. So I think I'll put him again in C tier because it was one of those weeks where staying clean is a big positive, but also you've got to show good pace as well. And some of them were a bit conservative this weekend, I have to say. Now Nick Hamilton, again, clean also. Didn't see too much of him. There was a small incident in race 2, which I don't believe he was at fault for when, no, absolutely not, when a few people were braking a bit too hard during a safety car. I think that pretty much wiped Hamilton out, so no fault of his own there. And the two other races, I believe, no complaints or incidents for him on that one, so Hamilton also goes in C tier. Just ahead of them is Jade Edwards. Very good start to race 1, moving properly in the fight, and I think was running 18th at the time in which she got a puncture. And I think, trying to remember, I'm not sure if that was due to an incident, but it was a sad way to end her first race, and I don't think the second or third one was much better, but the pace was there, a bit like in Thruxton, but as sadly has been the case for a lot of this year, she hasn't really got the rewards for it. So it's a real shame, but because of the pace, she'll go in C again. But now but fortunately, it's not going to be the same again. We're not going to be getting C tiers all day because Sam Smelt had a really thoroughly decent weekend, and I have to say, it's often been the case this year that he's been good qualifying, muscled out in race 1 or 2 or whatever, and then dips out of the fight and doesn't really fight back. But Smelt actually was in the fight this year. He did actually stay there, even if he was bullied out of good positions in the end. I don't think he got any points for it. He didn't add to his points tally, sadly, but he was there, and I'd say putting up a good fight. I mean, little questionable moments where he made things a little bit difficult for his faster teammate Roy Butcher, but in the end, Smelt for having a lot more relevance in the race than we're used to seeing. So I guess that's so big. So I call that an improvement. So Smelts will go in B. Now for Jack Butel, and all of a sudden, after 2 very good weekends, he was a bit of an anomaly this Sunday. Not really challenging. I think he was down there with. I think Halstead was. I mean, Butel wasn't a million miles ahead of Halstead in those races, which is a bit of a shame, but yeah, a bit of a surprise considering their teammates. But yeah, not really in the fight compared to Knockhill and Thruxton, so I'll give Butel C. Then Sam Osbourne. again, a bit like Sam Smelts, couldn't really add to the points, but he was very was pretty excited to watch in the fight in the end. And in race 3, I think he was at one point in 10th place, but little incidents in race 3 ultimately brought the weekend to a sad end. But Osbourne, I think, good improvements to making the most of other people's misfortunes, and so not too bad. But yep, Osbourne, because he didn't really add to his points tally, I can't really give him higher than B. But Aaron Taylor Smith, on the other hand, was someone who properly stayed in the fight. Had a couple of incidents which varied in terms of whose fault it was. But he was probably the most I've seen him in the fight in a decent amount of time. I can't remember if Taylor Smith was particularly good at Croft when he was a Volkswagen or BMR driver, but he seems to be properly enjoying himself. Race 2 was involved in a little incident through no fault of his own, brought that to an end early. But like so many others before him, so many others around him, he made a brilliant recovery in race 3 and got some more points. So yeah, I think I'll give Taylor Smith. I'll make him the first A-tier driver for this video. Carl Boardley next. I think the only proper appearance he made in the fight was when he probably accidentally spun Tom Chilton in race 2. Apart from that, wasn't very relevant to the fight. Didn't make too many appearances. So I don't think I'll put Boardley down in the very busy C tier for this week. Tom Chilton, similar story to Knock Hill, probably showing a bit more pace than his teammate Morgan, which is a nice surprise. But unfortunately, race 2 prevented him from getting a thoroughly deserved result. But fastest lap in that race was a good reward for showing his true pace. And then race 3 but races 1 and 3 where he kept it clean. I think he did two very decent results there too. So Chilton could go in A tier. I think that's the first time I've given it to him this year, but it might be, but who knows. Anyway, well done Tom Chilton, much better. Ollie Jackson now, probably very unfortunate in races 1 and 3 to get suspension damage that's ruined both his races. But race 2, probably the only highlights, keeping it clean and getting a points finish from pretty much the back. That was a good round of applause. So I think one good result against 2 bad ones. It's not quite A tier, but definitely B, a very high B in my opinion. Now for Jack Goff, similar to Knock Hill, not so much in the fights compared to Taylor Smith, who was making loads of progress. So Goff would be surprised by that. I think I certainly was. So Goff, yeah, not really as relevant as we've seen him in other meetings this year. Race 3 was his undoing, sadly, when he had the big amount of front end damage in the Zone 1 collision. That was a difficult one to call in terms of who was at fault. But pretty much the only notable moment for Golf Weekend was that accident. So again, he will go in C tier. Now for Dan Lloyd, was looking like a fairly typical weekend for Lloyd. The top 10s here and there. Yeah, good points, just not quite as high results as perhaps Plato, who does do his utmost to get them. And Lloyd, unfortunately, out in race 3 at turn 1 in that previously aforementioned incident. I'll give Lloyd for what is seeming like his typical weekend. We'll give him a B tier. Chris Smiley, now up in the top 15, which I think he's worthy of the top 15 in the standings overall this year, in my opinion. Made some fairly typical and some good and moves we would expect from Chris Smiley. Very robust and worthy of a bit of applause. But not quite for any high positions, and I think race 3 went a bit downhill in the end for him, and that ended his day and weekend on a bit of a sad note. So I'll give Smiley a B tier. Tom Oliphant next, and probably the unluckiest driver in touring cars right now. I mean, he is not having a fun season, and every now and then there's a few bright moments, but can't help but feel sorry for the guy. He's got so much pace, but luck is just not on his side right now. But apart from that, the races he could finish, they were very good. but unfortunately you can't give a driver a very high tier if you only get a glimpse of the pace they might have had they finished. So yeah, Oliphant, he's having a real run of luck, real run of bad luck right now. I hope it changes next time out at Silverstone. He deserves a break, but this weekend sadly he goes in C. Next up, Jason Plato. Probably, yep. As I said before, much more making an effort to gets much better results than Lloyd. Staying consistent. Really weird incident in race 3 where he went had a massive off and essentially put him out of the race. But in races 1 and 2, I think weren't too many complaints or issues. So for decency and good results, I'll put him in B. Stephen Jelly next, another rear-wheel drive car who you'd expect to do much better, but like I said, with the resurfacing, I don't think the rear-wheel drive cars, I don't think they'll have as much of an advantage nowadays. So Jelly, sort of normal, a bit normal, becoming a bit normal now. Staying. If he's in the top 10, it's towards the end of that top 10. If not, in the top 15, just getting little points here and there. So he's still close to the top 10 standings, but we saw at Knock Hill he was probably he could be like the top 8, could be a top 8 worthy driver, but definitely not this weekend. So I think I'll put him with Oliphant in C tier because neither of them showed that much pace in the races where they finished. So yep, Jelly also goes in C. Dan Rowbottom has now slipped outside the top 10, which is a big surprise, but obviously makes sense. Race 1, little incident, taken out through no fault of his own, and he had every right to be angry. And then once again, a bit similar to Thruxton and Knock Hill, improved ever so slightly in race 3 to get some points, but one good result probably won't push you up the order that much. So I'll give Rowbottom B. Now for top 10, Roy Butcher, despite everything, is still in that top 10. Miserable start to on Saturday with the mechanical issue that's left him at the back for race 1. Ever so slightly moved up for race 2. Race 1 couldn't quite get in the points, and then race 1 again another incident through a very unfortunate incident which put him ensured he's starting at the back for race 3 also. But and then all of a sudden, his evening ended on a happy note by getting some points through the misfortunes of others, and just got enough points to remain in that top 10. So which is where he's worthy of being this year. So we'll put him in B also. Now Adam Morgan, not quite as relevant as other meetings this year. But similar to Knock Hill, just getting points here and there. He does tend to settle for that on tracks where he perhaps struggles a little bit, and still stays pretty close in that battle for sixth, which he can still very much definitely realistically get as the season goes on. So not quite as many highlights as other meetings this year, but Morgan, due to consistency, will go in A alongside his teammate Chilton. Senna Proctor next. Again, now in the top 8 in the championship. We can ask ourselves now how Proctor would be doing if he'd done that first meeting of the year at Thruxton, but we'll never know. And now is definitely him and Cook could be a real powerhouse team as the season goes on when Cook is properly in the fight for the points. The championship balance doesn't seem to affect Proctor, even though it's probably the first time he's ever had to use it. So yeah, it's a very similar pace to the other meetings where he's been towards the top. So because he won one podium in race 1 and then slightly dipped in races 2 and 3. So for that reason, I'll put him in A. But still probably in the fight, and now in the fight for 6th place, which he could definitely realistically get. And probably the driver of the day, certainly with the best average for the day, average of third, will be Aidan Moffat. First ever pole position, race 1 win, held off loads and loads of cars with 75 kilos somehow, still got second, and race 3 with only slightly less ballast, still got 6th place, and That's the I did not expect Moffat met my expectations in qualifying. He exceeded them on Sunday, so yeah, that was so I did have high hopes for him, and that was excellent. And now Sutton, alongside as well as Cook, has a teammate who can help, who can probably knock points off Sutton or Cook's rivals. So Moffat, yeah, definitely the driver of the day. Where else could he go other than S tier? Now for Gordon Shedden, holding on to that elusive best of the rest 6th place. I didn't expect expectations weren't too high after qualifying, but a few gained good places in race 1. Then came race 2, where he was in that excellent fight with Sutton, Turkington, and Ingram for 4th place, and race 3 was on the front row, was second, stayed second despite the pressure of Sutton. So yeah, very admirable job from Shedden to get to stay in that 6th place fight. He's definitely been worthy of that this year. So due to showing much more of his normal pace, Shedden can go in A tier. Now for Tom Ingram. I mean, his qualifying struggles were probably unfortunate, and I think that was probably perhaps a sign that pretty much the sign that he probably wasn't going to have that good a weekend. But moving up to 13th in race 1, that was probably what you would expect. But then race 2 and 3, massive improvements, two 4th places. Unfortunately, though, 2 weekends in a row without a podium has dropped him to 5th after starting second. But he is still, it's still very close. And I think all things considered, considering that Saturday performance, I think Ingram would settle for those 2 4th places and getting just a decent 3 points in race 1. So. Despite losing second in the standings, and perhaps now having much more of a fight on his hand to get second, Ingram can go in A. Josh Cook now, similar to I think definitely one of the most exciting drivers from the day, making some very typical and exciting moves from we'd expect from Cook, and. I guess now could well be the new favourite for a second overall, but it's close now, and I'm really happy we've got 4 drivers in with a shout. I think in with a real shout of second overall, and all 4 of them really deserve it. So he might not have won a race, might have only been a single podium out of his day, but the moves he made and the excitement he brought to the races, I think that's worthy of S tier. So well done, Josh Cook. Colin Turkington now. It's an interesting one. I mean, obviously winning race 3, massive with a lot of pressure from drivers he had a good fight with in race 2. I think that's worthy. That pretty much lifted up his weekend. But before that, there's a weird one. Obviously, them consistently referring to him as the King of Croft, and him getting that 13th win in the end, and being way ahead of his teammates Oliphant and Jelly in what is usually a real drive track, but Turkington clearly don't need that to be the case anymore. But for races 1 and 2, for him to be muscled out a little bit and a little bit unlucky and not really making much progress, I think it was a big surprise. So I think that's the one thing that's going to prevent him from getting S tier this week. So yeah, Turkington could go in A, but a very high A, I have to say. And Jake Hill, finally, win number 2 is there, and of course being reasonably close to winning race 1, despite all that ballast. Clearly, still again, not affecting him at all, that ballast, and for him to be second now, I think it's been a very worthy season for him to be second. And so yeah, I mean, where else could he go over the next year to finally get that race 2, finally get that second ever win, second in race 1, and still pretty much up there with full ballast in race 3, and only 29 points behind Sutton. It might seem a big margin, but definitely a big gainer from the day. So Hill, no question, S tier. And Ash Sutton, yeah, I think I might do this just because I've been giving him S tiers all season, because it's been that kind of season for him. He's been absolutely supreme. But because he was consistent more than anything, gentle, conservative with his driving a little bit, not making too many ballsy moves like we saw him do last time we were here. I think it's not quite an S tier day because it's not a spectacular day. S is for spectacular, and I don't think Sutton was quite as spectacular as he usually is. So yeah, Sutton along with Turkerton will go as a high A tier driver. So there are my final ratings for this weekend at Croft. You'll notice not one single D tier driver. Obviously, it wasn't the cleanest weekend, and I think I think everyone had at least one little touch or bit of contact at some point in their day. But because they all produce such great racing, I don't think I can bring myself to put them in any of them in D tier for this weekend. Obviously now on to Croft, obviously out Silverstone rather, which always produces great racing, despite being one of the most simple track designs there, but it's always a great watch, and I'm looking forward to that, especially it being a back-to-back weekend, which we hardly ever get for touring cars. So, hope you're looking forward to that as much as I am. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.